Good to have you with us at this hour. I'm Daniel Choy, here to provide you with the latest. We begin here in Korea. Hard as they try, government measures to boost the economy are not taking hold as quickly as most would like. Heading into next year, the strategy will center around two objectives: fueling domestic demand and reforming the labor market. Our Park Ji-won starts us off.
Revitalizing the domestic market and carrying out structural reforms of the labor market. These are two pillars of the government's economic initiative next year as it tries to build momentum toward growth. First, the expansion of the domestic market. The government aims to achieve an economic growth rate in the 4% range next year and has realized that a supplementary budget alone won't be enough to get the job done. So the plan now calls for inducing more large-scale investments from the private sector next year by streamlining the complicated process of the private investment and lowering thresholds for private investments. For example, the government hopes to attract private investment to areas where only the government can invest, such as prisons. However, due to resistance from the opposition, it remains to be seen whether the plans will be realized. Increasing labor market flexibility is another pillar of next year's goal, specifically reducing the number of temporary jobs and reforming the regular job system. About 1/3 of all current workers are employed on a temporary basis. This means their salaries are lower and they are placed in more vulnerable working conditions than their regular counterparts. To get the private sector to transition more temporary employees into regular positions, it hopes to reform the rigid salary systems, especially for high-paid regular workers. However, experts stress that securing enough of a social safety net for the jobless, such as extending unemployment benefits and providing more job training, should also be a priority so as not to decrease domestic consumption. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Some upsetting digits we have. The number of elderly Koreans living in poverty is rising at a troubling rate. The Korea Economic Research Institute says the number of elderly households below the poverty line came to 1.5 million last year, which is more than double the total from the year 2006. Their average income each month, $342, at least 60% of which comes from subsidies handed out by the government and non-profit organizations. The report noted that welfare policies for the elderly need to focus more on providing financial support rather than trying to find them employment. The average age of an elderly Korean citizen living in poverty last year was 78. Responding to recent allegations that some of her former aides have been meddling in state affairs, President Park Geun-hye says it's regrettable that unfounded rumors are obscuring progress on the things that really matter. Speaking at a luncheon on Sunday at the presidential office of Cheongwade, President Park called on the ruling party lawmakers in attendance not to be swayed by the claims and focus on their jobs, namely boosting the economy. She stressed that her top two priorities have been and still is eradicating corruption and improving people's lives. An investigation is underway to determine who leaked internal documents from the presidential office that suggest former aides of the president had been undermining current officials. From Dokdo Island and Japan's refusal to make amends for wartime atrocities to holding North Korea responsible for its provocations, U.S. Congressman Ed Royce was asked to weigh in on a number of controversial issues central to South Korea in a recent interview. His answers demonstrate clearly where he stands. Arikani Kim has more.
An 11-term U.S. lawmaker is making it clear where he stands on a number of issues that have placed South Korea at odds with neighbors. In a wide-ranging interview with Seoul-based Yonhap News Agency, Congressman Ed Royce, who is chairman of the House Committee on Foreign Affairs, said that understanding the past is key to understanding the present. On the issue of Dokdo Island, Royce openly rejected Japan's claims to the Korean territory and said its proper name is Dokdo, not the Liancourt Rocks, as the U.S. officially refers to it, and not Takeshima, which is what Japan calls it. It's a rare assertion since the U.S. government takes no official position on the issue. Royce also slammed Tokyo for repeatedly declining to take responsibility for forcing women into sexual slavery before and during World War II. Calling it as horrifying as denying the Holocaust, Royce said Japan needed to admit history as it occurred to make for a better future. Regarding North Korea, Royce said he has introduced legislation that calls for stronger financial sanctions on the regime. The North Korea Sanctions Enforcement Act passed the House earlier this year and currently waits approval by the Senate, although passage is unlikely in this current Congress. If the bill doesn't pass, Royce said he would reintroduce it once the new Congress comes in. In the meantime, the veteran lawmaker said Washington, Seoul, and Tokyo needed to work more closely with one another to maintain pressure on North Korea over its human rights violations and repeated provocations. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
The Philippines is picking up the pieces this evening after being slammed by its strongest typhoon so far this year. Typhoon Hagupit made landfall with winds up to 175 kilometers an hour. It struck very close to the area where Typhoon Haiyan hit last year when it killed more than 6,300 people. But the Philippines was better prepared this time around. The government issued warnings well in advance, and more than 1 million people in the area are reported to have fled by the time the storm made impact. ABC News in Australia, however, is reporting at least 2 deaths from the typhoon. South Korea's foreign ministry has issued a travel warning to the typhoon-stricken country, and the government is currently discussing the size of the humanitarian assistance and is also looking into sending a task force team to the Philippines. A new U.S. command dedicated to military operations in Iraq and Syria has been established. Military officials said Friday that the combined Joint Task Force Operation Inherent Resolve has taken charge of the mission to destroy the Islamic State in both countries. And while the U.S. military has said that the new command will replace the U.S. Central Command as the organization releasing information about the mission, no further details have been disclosed. Army Lieutenant General James L. Terry, who is in charge of the command, was expected to brief the media on the changes late last week, but the announcement of new Secretary of Defense by President Barack Obama delayed the press conference. Chinese President Xi Jinping says it's time to pull out all the stops to upgrade the nation's free trade area strategy and make sure FTAs play a bigger role in building a new economic system of openness for China. Speaking to members of the Politburo of the Communist Party of China on Saturday, President Xi said that the quantity of free trade pacts wasn't important. It's the quality of those agreements that is. He added that China must strive to inject more Chinese elements in international economic trade rules. China has been forging ahead to open up its economy and has free trade agreements under construction with more than 20 countries or regions. Korea may not be able to hold all of its Winter Olympic events in the host city of Pyeongchang in 2018, apparently. An International Olympic Committee official speaking on the condition of anonymity said the IOC is urging Korean organizers of the 2018 Winter Games to move bobsleigh and luge events to another country. This is to save money. The move, in line with IOC President Thomas Bach's cost-cutting reforms, would save $120 million in construction costs and around $5 million in annual maintenance costs. The events could be moved to an existing venue in Asia, Europe, or North America. The logical choice would be Nagano, Japan, which is closest to Korea and does have hosting experience for Winter Games. Korea is, of course, quite resistant to the IOC suggestions for many good reasons. Moving on to other stories, getting access to the high-speed internet can be rather difficult for people living in remote areas of the country. That's especially true for those living near the demilitarized zone that separates the two Koreas. Installing Wi-Fi there presents its own unique set of challenges. But one of the country's largest telecommunications operators has pitched in to narrow the digital divide, and students are reaping the benefits. Our Paul Yi has this report.
Taesongdong Elementary School in Paju is located just 1 kilometer from North Korea. At this school, the only one in the demilitarized zone, a smart technology education class is in full swing. The teacher, instead of writing on a chalkboard, uses an ultra-high-definition TV and a smart pen to interact with students. The children have their own tablet PCs to look through the digital materials of the lesson. The young students say that they're impressed by the new educational system.
I never had a chance to browse the internet with a tablet PC before. It is very easy to search for information.
Mobile carrier KT helped the school install the Giga Internet connection, which is 10 times faster than the existing high-speed internet. The move is part of efforts to roll out the Giga Internet service nationwide and improve competitiveness in telecommunications.
The DMZ is an area with a sad history of being divided for 60 years. We hope our Giga Internet service will help overcome the digital divide of education and culture in the area.
The advanced information technology aims to help students in remote areas connect to the rest of the world with a message of hope and opportunity. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
And now the weather. Clearer conditions free of snow can be expected in Seoul and most parts of the nation earlier in the day on Monday. Temperatures will climb up a little bit later in the day with highs of 3 in Seoul, 5 in Daejeon, and 9 in Busan. But brace yourself for more snow or rain midway through the week. And now let's check out the weather conditions in your neck of the woods and around the world. Well, that's all we have for you for now. Thank you for choosing Arirang for this hour's news updates. Do have a great start to your week.